Have you ever looked into your own child's eyes and realized they see you not as a mother, but as an obstacle? That's what happened to me. After my husband died, I thought moving closer to my kids would fill the silence, help us heal together. Instead, that silence became the sound of something breaking, slowly, quietly. They started helping with my pills, my bank papers, my mail. They said it was love, protection, care. But love doesn't change your medication or hide your phone. If you've ever trusted someone so deeply that you didn't see the knife until it was already turning, this story is for you. The kettle clicked off and the house fell into that late evening hush I used to love, the kind that made Bob clear his throat before speaking, as if not to scare the quiet away. I wrapped both hands around my tea and felt the heat soak into my fingers when Jason said, almost polite, almost bored, "Mom, maybe you should stop taking so many pills. They're messing with your head." I blinked at him. "Jason, they're from Dr. Patel. I've taken them since your father passed." He shrugged. "Exactly." My daughter, Lily, leaned on the doorframe, arms folded like a bouncer. "Maybe it's time we start taking care of things, for you." The spoon in my cup tapped the porcelain, a thin, nervous bell. "What things?" They looked at each other the way children do when they've already decided something. Not cruel. Worse, efficient. Steam rose between us, and for a second I smelled Bob's aftershave, the one he wore on Sundays. It steadied me. "I'm fine," I said, softer than I meant. Jason's smile didn't reach his eyes. "We'll help with the paperwork. Less for you to worry about." Winter moved into my kitchen without opening a door. Not because of their words, but because of how ready they were to say them. After Bob died, the house turned too quiet. I told myself the cure was simple: be closer to the kids. I sold the place with the apricot tree and the squeaky gate, hugged the realtor like a life raft, and moved 30 minutes from Jason and 15 from Lily. I brought the wedding dishes, the dented kettle, and a shoebox of letters tied with a ribbon Bob once said was too pink for a fisherman and just pink enough for a husband. I thought proximity would stitch us back together. Grief makes optimists of fools like me. The first weeks were gentle. They came with flowers from the grocery store and sat at my tiny round table. We laughed about the time Jason broke the dryer trying to wash his sneakers, about Lily's prom dress disaster, safety pins and mascara tears, and Bob, steady as a lighthouse, hemming lace with a tackle needle. I cooked like I was auditioning for their forgiveness: pot roasts, lemon pies, soups that simmered all afternoon. I sent the grandkids home with containers labeled in black marker: for Tuesday, for after soccer, for when you're sad and don't know why. Money floated between us the way favors do in a family: no ledger, just faith. I covered Lily's dentist bill because her insurance was being weird. I paid Jason's overdue electric, just this once, because he swore the job was picking up next month. When the first tuition reminder came, I wrote the check smiling, hearing Bob, "Take care of our own, Annie." It felt like keeping a promise he made and I inherited. And when they told me the paperwork around my new condo was a jungle, I handed them a folder thick with passwords and post-it notes. "Take it," I said. "I'm tired of wrestling printers." Trust felt like rest. They started coming over with clipboards. "We'll streamline everything," Jason said, tapping boxes like he was drumming out a beat only responsible people know. Lily ordered clear containers and labeled my pantry: grains, snacks, teas, vitamins. It was pretty, I won't lie. I liked opening the door and seeing order. "You see," she said. "We've got you." The words wrapped around me like a blanket. I didn't notice the knot tightening at the edge. I slept better with the pills Dr. Patel gave me, a soft descent instead of falling through midnight like it was a hole in the floor. I kept them on the nightstand, next to Bob's old watch that had stopped at 2:17 years ago. A reminder, I told myself, that time behaves if you ask it nicely. When Jason teased me, Mom and her magic beans, I laughed. When Lily said, "Maybe cut back, they can be tricky at your age," I nodded and changed the subject to cucumbers, how they never taste like anything in winter. We had a Sunday ritual. I'd make pancakes and the grandkids would fight over who got the first one, the misshapen heart that always came out too brown. Jason would fix the wobbly chair the way his father used to, by staring at it and then tightening exactly one screw, like dignity depended on it. Lily would check my mail, shaking envelopes. real estate flyers, coupons, some bank thing. She'd slide the bank thing into her tote. I'll scan it later. I didn't mind. I was proud to be cared for, even a little performative about it, telling Marcia next door, my kids are on top of everything. I liked how that sounded in my mouth, like a hymn with a sturdy melody. On good days, I believed we were healing. They lingered after dinner, loading the dishwasher wrong in precisely the same way Bob did, and I let them, because some arguments are just ways of saying we're still here. I bought beach towels for when we'd go to the shore, once it warms up, and a new set of crib sheets, just in case, though no one had said there'd be another baby. Hope decorated my life with small, useful things. I didn't see the edge until I was already on it. The first hint was a form Lily slid across the table while we waited for the kettle. It's just to add me as a contact in case there's an emergency, she said. Her nails clicked against the laminate. Hospitals get weird with phone calls. The lines looked familiar, name, address, a signature line, but the title at the top was fuzzed in a font my eyes don't love. Power of something. Of attorney, Jason supplied, breezy. You know, just in case. Standard. I thought of the night Bob and I signed our first mortgage, how we clinked glasses over the kitchen sink because the fancy flutes were still in a moving box. He read every line out loud and I teased him, you're pretending it's poetry, and he said, it is, it's the poem of where we'll sleep. Back then, ink felt like a promise. Now, holding Lily's pen, it felt like surrender. I'll take it to Dr. Patel, I said, stalling, ask what she thinks. Jason's smile flashed, a shutter click. No need. We Googled it. Lily softened her voice. Mom, we just want to make sure nothing falls through the cracks. You shouldn't have to worry. The kettle whistled. I poured, hands steady, and felt the first chill of something I didn't have a word for yet. Not fear, not even doubt, just the awareness that I was handing them more than a pen could measure. Still, I signed the contact form, not the other one, tucking the rest under the toaster. I told myself it was fine, that caution was not disloyalty. That night I tucked Bob's stopwatch into my palm and asked him a question I'd never said out loud. If our children love us, why'd I feel like a guest in my own life? The watch stayed silent, kind as ever. I slept with the pills on the nightstand and the window cracked to hear the wind. In the morning, the pantry labels gleamed. The wobbly chair held, and the word I'd been reaching for finally arrived, thin and sharp as a sewing pin, precarious. The first time I felt it, really felt it, was one evening when the house seemed to tilt under my feet. I'd just finished watering my violets and sat down to watch the news when my hands started trembling. My heart thudded too fast, too loud. I thought maybe I'd skipped dinner. Or maybe it was grief, sneaking up again like it sometimes did, a cold breath at the back of my neck. But then I noticed the pills. They were smaller. The color had changed from pale blue to white. The label looked new, too, neat and crisp, as if it had been printed yesterday. Jason, I called out, trying to sound calm. Did you pick up my prescription? He appeared in the doorway, his expression smooth as glass. Yeah, I was at the pharmacy anyway. Figured I'd save you the trip. Something in his voice, too quick, too flat, made me uneasy. Strange, I murmured, they don't usually change the tablets. He didn't meet my eyes. They're probably generic now. Same thing. I nodded, but a cold spark of doubt lit somewhere deep in my stomach. Bob used to say, trust is like fine china, once cracked, it always leaks. That night, I held the pill bottle up to the lamplight. The cap gleamed like a secret. I didn't take them. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling fan, counting its slow turns and thinking about how quiet the house had become. Not peaceful quiet, defensive quiet. The kind that listens. The next morning, Lily came over early. Too early. She had coffee and croissants, all smiles and soft hands. You look tired, she said, brushing crumbs from her sweater. Maybe the medication's too strong. I didn't take it, I said. Her smile froze for a second before she blinked it away. Well, good. You don't need all that stuff anyway. We'll talk to your doctor. I wanted to say I already have a doctor. I wanted to remind her that I'd raised 2 children, buried a husband, and survived 2 surgeries, that I wasn't a helpless old woman. But my throat tightened. You learn, over years of motherhood, when words build bridges and when they burn them. So I just nodded. That evening, I heard them talking in the kitchen. My hearing isn't what it used to be, but I caught enough. She's slipping, Jason said. Sometimes she forgets what day it is. Exactly, Lily whispered. We need to get everything in order before it gets worse. The house, the accounts, all of it. My name sounded foreign in their mouths. She's slipping. I stood in the hallway, my hand on the wall to steady myself. They thought I was losing my mind. No, they wanted me to. Because confusion would make me quiet, and quiet would make me easy to erase. Later, I sat at the kitchen table, looking at the photos on the fridge. Jason at 10, his hair sticking up. Lily in her ballet costume, grinning with 2 missing teeth. I whispered to their faces, "What happened to you?" The next day, Jason took my phone. "Too many scam calls," he said lightly. "You don't need that stress." He set it on the counter, slipped it into his pocket, and changed the subject before I could speak. Then came the bank. My card stopped working. Lily said she'd handle it. They just need to confirm some details. I'll call them. Every piece of my life, my money, my medicine, my voice, was slipping into their hands like sand through a sieve. When they brought new papers for me to sign, I felt the ground start to tilt again. Lily said, "It's just property stuff, Mom. Simplifying things in case something happens." I picked up the pen, stared at the blank line where my name should go, and smiled faintly. "This pen's out of ink," I said. "Oh, here," Jason offered another, too quickly. I waved him off. "No rush. I'll sign later." I folded the document and tucked it beneath a stack of old magazines. They didn't notice. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking of Bob's voice on the day we closed on our first house. "Always keep one thing in your name, Annie. A woman should never be completely at someone else's mercy." I crept to the kitchen and turned on the little lamp by the sink. The papers were gone. My hands shook as I searched the drawers, the counter, even the trash. Gone. Only the faint smell of Lily's perfume lingered. That's when it hit me, this wasn't just about control. It was about inheritance. About erasing me before I was even gone. I poured a glass of water and looked out the window. The street was empty, the night thick and still. Somewhere a dog barked once and stopped. I whispered to the dark, they wouldn't, they couldn't. But then I thought of the pills, the whispers, the missing phone, the way they watched me lately, patient, cautious, like someone waiting for a candle to burn itself out. A strange calm settled over me. Not acceptance, not fear, something colder. Clarity. If I stayed silent, I might not wake up one morning. So I did what I'd always done when life turned cruel. I planned quietly. I hid the remaining pills in a teapot Bob's mother had given us. I found an old prepaid phone tucked in the drawer where I kept recipe cards. And I started writing everything down, dates, receipts, snippets of what they said. Proof. Because maybe they thought I was slipping. But I was just starting to see. The days that followed felt like living inside a glass jar, everything muffled, distorted, and a little too bright. Jason and Lily hovered around me with that sugary patience people use with toddlers. "You rest, Mom," Lily would say, her voice dripping honey. "Let us handle the hard stuff." The hard stuff, apparently, was my whole life. They started by sorting my mail, to save you time. Bills disappeared into Lily's tote bag. Jason created a folder system on my kitchen counter, color-coded and useless. My checkbook vanished, then reappeared with fewer pages. When I asked about the missing ones, he smiled. "We consolidated some payments. Don't worry, don't worry." That phrase began to sound like a warning. They'd rearranged the furniture too, moved my chair away from the window, for better lighting, swapped the rug, because you might trip. I tripped anyway, over their lies. One morning, I walked into the kitchen and froze. A single sheet of paper lay neatly on the table, beside a pen and a steaming mug of coffee I hadn't made. The heading read, "Property Transfer Agreement." Below it, my name, my address, and the words "transfer of ownership to family trustees." My children's names. My throat went dry. "Just sign it, Mom," Lily said sweetly from behind me. "It'll make everything simpler. Taxes, upkeep, all that stuff." Jason leaned against the fridge, arms folded. "You don't need the stress of managing a house. We'll take care of everything." The way he said everything made my stomach twist. I picked up the pen slowly, twirling it between my fingers. My hands didn't shake, that surprised me. I felt something rising instead, something old and strong. Bob's voice, low and steady. Annie, when people start rushing you, that's when you slow down. Of course, I said. You're right. Let's get this done. I bent over the paper and scrawled my name. Only the pen had no ink. Lily sighed. Mom, you forgot to click it. Oh, silly me, I murmured, capping it carefully and setting it down. Let me make another cup of tea first. My hands cramping. I smiled as I walked to the kettle, my heart hammering so loud I could hear it. I wasn't about to sign away my home with a working pen or a weak hand. That night, when they left, I sat at the table staring at that blank signature line. The moonlight from the window hit the page, turning it silver, like it was already a ghost of what could have been. I thought about the pills again, the altered bottle now hidden in the back of my drawer. About my missing phone, my restricted bank account, the way they watched me eat, drink, breathe. I felt like a patient in my own house, and they were the nurses deciding how long I'd stay alive. The next morning, Jason brought breakfast. Toast, fruit, orange juice. The plate looked perfect, too perfect. He poured me a glass, smiled, and said, "You should take your medication after this." I held the glass up, pretending to study the pulp. "You added sugar?" "A bit," he said, casual. "You always liked it sweet." When he turned away, I poured it down the sink. The juice slid away like a secret, silent and clean. That's when I realized something. If they could tamper with pills, they could tamper with anything. By noon, I had decided. If I didn't act soon, they'd finish what they'd started, and it would look like age, or clumsiness, or fate. I pulled on Bob's old cardigan, the one that still smelled faintly of cedar and tobacco, and went for a walk. My knees complained, but my mind felt sharper than it had in months. I needed proof, something solid, undeniable. At the pharmacy, I asked the clerk for my refill records. She hesitated until I mentioned Dr. Patel's name. When she printed them, I almost cried. 2 different dates, 2 different signatures. My son's handwriting on one of them. That night, I didn't sleep. I stayed in the armchair, lights off, listening to the house creak. The sound of footsteps upstairs, Jason moving around, checking something. I held the papers close to my chest, like a child clutching a talisman. Morning came gray and heavy. Jason announced he'd scheduled a doctor's visit for me. "Just evaluate your medication," he said. Lily smiled too quickly. "It's for your safety, Mom." I nodded, pretending not to notice the way Jason's hand lingered on my shoulder, too firm. After they left, I opened the window and breathed in the cold air. Somewhere, seagulls cried above the river. I thought of running, but where would I go? My car keys were gone, my purse, lighter than before. I looked at Bob's photo on the mantel, him holding a fishing rod, sun in his eyes. "I'm not ready to join you yet," I whispered. That evening, I packed a small bag, documents, the pharmacy slips, my journal, a few old photos. I hid them in the laundry basket under folded towels. If they were planning something, an accident, a fall, a mix-up, I'd make sure they didn't get away with it. Because sometimes, survival isn't about running. It's about waiting for the right moment to strike. And I was done being their victim. The morning it happened, the sky looked like metal, pale and cold, with a stillness that made the birds silent. I'd barely slept. The air in the house felt different, heavy, like it was holding its breath with me. Jason was downstairs early, humming to himself as he made coffee. That wasn't normal, he never hummed. "Morning, Mom," he said when I entered the kitchen. His tone was too bright, too even. The kind of brightness that hides a shadow. "How did you sleep?" "Fine," I lied. My throat was dry. The smell of coffee made my stomach turn. He poured me a cup, already sweetened. "Thought I'd save you the trouble." Lily came in a few minutes later, dressed neatly, makeup done. She looked like she was heading to a meeting. "You have that doctor's appointment at 10, she said. "We'll drive you." "I can drive myself," I replied automatically. Jason laughed. "No, Mom. It's icy out. Let us take care of you." The way he said "take care of you" sent a pulse of dread through me. I looked at the steaming cup in front of me and felt my pulse start to climb. I needed time. "I'll just get my bag," I said. Upstairs, I moved fast. I'd already hidden my notes, my proof, the pharmacy papers inside a plastic folder under my laundry. I grabbed them now, stuffing everything into my purse. My hands shook, not from fear but from focus. I checked the pills again, half gone, though I hadn't taken them. Someone had. Someone wanted it to look like I had. In the mirror, my face looked older than usual, the lines deeper, the eyes sharper. Not today, I whispered to my reflection. You're not winning today. When I went back downstairs, Jason was by the counter, checking his phone. The coffee cup still sat there, steaming gently. Lily glanced up and smiled. Drink up, Mom. We don't want to be late. I met her eyes and smiled back, slow and calm. Then I lifted the cup, deliberately spilled it across the counter. Oh no, I gasped, watching the liquid spread. How clumsy of me. Jason cursed under his breath, grabbed a towel. Lily frowned but said nothing. My heart hammered, but I forced a laugh. Guess I'll just wait and drink water. The drive to the clinic was quiet. Too quiet. They didn't speak to me, didn't play the radio. I watched the road unwind through the windshield, gray fields and bare trees sliding by. My purse sat on my lap, my fingers clutching it like armor. At the clinic, Lily walked me to the door, insisting she come in. We'll just make sure you're checked in properly, she said. But Dr. Patel's nurse spotted me and smiled. Mrs. Anderson, you're early. That was my chance. I leaned close to the nurse and whispered, can I see the doctor privately? Please. It's urgent. Her smile faded a little, but she nodded. Of course. Inside the exam room, I locked eyes with Dr. Patel and felt something in me finally break loose. They're trying to hurt me, I said. My children. The words sounded strange, even to me, but once they were out, I couldn't stop. I told her everything, the pills, the signatures, the bank accounts, the property form, the coffee that smelled wrong. My voice shook, but my story didn't. Dr. Patel listened, eyes steady. When I finished, she didn't dismiss me. Instead, she said softly, Mrs. Anderson, I believe you. That single sentence made me cry, quiet tears that tasted like relief. She left the room and returned with a security officer and another nurse. We'll take a sample of your medication, she said. And you won't go home with them today. By the time Jason and Lily realized what was happening, it was too late. The nurse told them I needed to stay for observation. Jason's jaw tightened. Lily's smile wavered. We'll check on you later, Mom, Jason said. His voice was almost kind. Almost. When they left, I sat on the exam table, hands trembling in my lap. Dr. Patel came back in, holding the small white pills in a plastic bag. Someone's been tampering with these, she said quietly. They contain traces of something that doesn't belong there. For a long moment, all I could do was stare. Are you sure? She nodded. Quite sure. You could have died, Mrs. Anderson. The words landed like cold rain. I thought of the cup of coffee, the car ride, the missing phone. All the little kindnesses that had started to feel like traps. When the police came later that afternoon, I told them everything again. They took the medication, the documents, even my notes. The detective, a gray-haired woman with kind eyes, said gently, you did the right thing. It's rare someone catches on in time. That night, the hospital let me stay in a quiet room. The sheets smelled of bleach and safety. I lay awake, watching the red pulse of the monitor beside my bed, and thought of Bob. You'd be proud of me, I whispered. I didn't let them win. I didn't know what would come next, arrests, investigations, shame, but for the first time in months, I wasn't afraid to wake up. Outside, rain began to fall softly against the window. I closed my eyes, and for once, I slept without the pills. When I opened my eyes the next morning, pale sunlight was spilling through the blinds. The rain had stopped, leaving tiny beads of water trembling on the glass. For a moment I didn't remember where I was, the sterile smell, the quiet hum of machines, and then it hit me, I was alive. Truly, unexpectedly alive. Dr. Patel came in with a folder pressed to her chest. We've confirmed the results, she said softly. Your medication was deliberately altered. I didn't ask how. I didn't need to. My children's faces appeared in my mind, Jason's tight jaw, Lily's rehearsed sweetness, and I felt something between sorrow and disbelief. They could have killed me, I whispered. They almost did, she replied. A nurse brought me tea. The cup trembled in my hand, but I didn't spill it this time. I kept staring at the liquid, thinking how close I'd come to never holding anything warm again. Later that day, the detective returned. Her name was Evelyn Brooks, short, silver-haired, with that calm patience of someone who's seen the worst of people and still believes in the good. She pulled up a chair and laid out a small stack of papers. Your pharmacy confirmed your son picked up the last prescription under your name. His signature's on the form. The handwriting matches what you gave us. I nodded. And the property transfer? She flipped another page. Forged. He and your daughter opened a joint account last month in preparation for the sale of your house. I covered my mouth. It wasn't the shock, I'd suspected it, it was the shame. The deep, aching shame of knowing I'd raised them, fed them, loved them into this. Evelyn must have read it in my eyes. Mrs. Anderson, she said gently, people do terrible things when money is involved. But this isn't your fault. That night, they placed me in a private recovery room, for safety. The nurse checked on me every hour. I kept the curtains open, watching the streetlights blur in the mist. My body was weak, but my mind was sharper than it had been in years. By morning, I had a plan. There was someone I hadn't spoken to in decades, Mark Lewis, an old friend of Bob's. We'd all gone to church together once. After Bob's death, Mark became a journalist, the kind who pokes into corners other people avoid. He'd sent me a Christmas card a few years back with his new office address scribbled in the corner. I found his number through an old contact in the church directory and called. When he answered, his voice carried that same steady curiosity I remembered. Annie? My God, it's been years. How are you? I'm alive, I said quietly. But I need your help. We met 3 days later in a quiet cafe near the ocean. I wore sunglasses, not because I needed them, but because I couldn't bear anyone recognizing me as the woman who'd been betrayed by her own children. Mark listened without interrupting. When I finished, he tapped his pen against the table. You realize, Annie, this could blow up their entire lives. They already blew up mine, I said. He nodded slowly. Then let's do this properly. Evidence, records, interviews. We'll make it airtight. Over the next few weeks, I gathered everything, pharmacy receipts, the tampered pills, the forged forms. Mark found the CCTV footage from the pharmacy showing Jason signing under my name. Lily's bank transfers surfaced next, small withdrawals at first, then larger ones. All the while, my children called me. Jason's messages were curt, angry. Lily's were tearful, manipulative. Mom, you're confused. We were trying to protect you. I didn't answer. When the story was ready, Mark asked me the hardest question. Are you sure you want this public? It'll be everywhere. I looked out at the ocean from his office window, the waves hitting the rocks with the same rhythm as my heartbeat. Yes, I said. If I stay silent, they'll keep pretending I imagined it. I need the world to know the truth, for me, and for anyone else being made to feel crazy for trusting the wrong people. He nodded. Then we go live next week. The night before the broadcast, I couldn't sleep. I walked along the beach near the hospital's guest cottages, the wind pulling at my scarf. I thought about Bob, how he used to say, truth always comes out, Annie, it just needs the right light. The next morning, when the studio lights flicked on and the cameras began to roll, I felt strangely calm. Mark sat beside me, the folder of evidence open between us. He began by reading the statement. These documents show deliberate medication tampering and real estate fraud. The words echoed through the studio, clear and final. Jason and Lily sat across from me, invited under the pretense of a family reconciliation. Their faces went pale. Jason's jaw tightened. Lily's eyes darted between the cameras and the papers. I looked at them, my voice low but steady. I raised you to tell the truth, I said. I never thought I'd use it against you. The silence that followed was deeper than any courtroom could hold. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't the one trembling. When the cameras stopped rolling, I stood up slowly. My legs felt weak, but my heart felt new. Mark squeezed my hand. You did it. No, I said softly, watching my children's stunned faces. I survived it. After the broadcast, it wasn't the bright studio lights or the journalists' questions that shook me most, it was the silence that followed. Thick, echoing silence, like the air after a storm. The cameras went dark, the crew started packing up, and I just sat there under the fading light, as if I were still performing, unsure if the play was finally over. My children stood off to the side. Lily cried quietly. the kind of crying people do when they're not sorry for what they've done, only for being caught. Jason just stared at me, his face frozen somewhere between anger and disbelief. For a second, I thought I saw shame in his eyes. But I didn't try to read him anymore. I'd spent a lifetime trying to understand those eyes, from the first time I held him to this final, wordless standoff. Sometimes children grow into strangers. Sometimes they grow into enemies. They drove me home under police escort that night. The neighbors had all seen the news, faces lit up by television screens, curtains half drawn. Marcia, my neighbor across the street, met me at the gate with a warm pie. She hugged me and whispered, "You're brave, Annie." I couldn't have done it. I smiled faintly. Bravery, I said, is just what's left when it's too late to be afraid. The investigation moved quickly. Detectives called daily, asking for details, dates, signatures, transactions. I answered calmly, like I was describing someone else's story. Jason was arrested first. The evidence against him was overwhelming. Lily cooperated later, half confessing, half blaming her brother. It didn't matter. The truth was already out. When the police car carried them away for the hearing, I stood by the window, watching it disappear down the quiet street. No tears came, only a hollow, peaceful exhaustion, the kind you feel after surviving a long illness. I stayed silent for months. I gave no interviews, turned down every talk show offer. Letters poured in from all over the country, people thanking me, sharing their own stories of betrayal, asking for advice. Eventually, I moved to a small cottage by the ocean. White fence, weathered porch, salt in the air. I chose it myself. The first morning I woke there, sunlight filled the room like forgiveness, and I realized I was free. Not from people, from fear. I planted roses, just like Bob and I used to. The soil was damp and cool beneath my hands, and when the first bud opened, I cried, not from sadness this time, but from the quiet joy of still being able to feel. Sometimes women write to me after seeing my story online. My son controls all my money. My daughter won't let me talk to my friends. I'm scared to sign anything. I write back to each one. Just one line, simple and true: don't stay silent. Talk to someone, a doctor, a lawyer, a neighbor. Silence is what they count on. In the evenings, I sit on my porch with a cup of tea, listening to the ocean. The breeze lifts the curtains, the sea hums softly, and sometimes I feel Bob beside me. I tell him, I made it, love. I survived. I didn't defeat my children, that's not victory. They chose their own path, and I had to let them go. What I did defeat was fear. And that's the kind of victory you keep forever. Once, Lily called me. Her voice was small, trembling. "Mom," she said, "I'm sorry. We thought we were doing the right thing. You don't know how hard it was." I listened quietly. Then I said, "I understand, sweetheart. But understanding isn't forgiveness. You can regret what you did, but that doesn't mean I have to trust you again." She cried. I didn't. Now my life is simple. I wake early, water my roses, make breakfast, and watch the sun rise over the water. Each day, I whisper to myself, you did what you had to do. You told the truth. Because truth is a kind of home too, and when every other door closes, it's the one that always stays open. So if someone you love ever makes you feel afraid, don't stay silent. Silence doesn't protect you, it hides their crimes. Speak up, even if your voice trembles. Because sometimes, telling the truth is the only way to survive. And you? Would you have the courage to stand up to those you once held in your arms? Follow if you believe that truth, no matter how painful, is always worth the fight. Sometimes I still dream of that kitchen, the one where it all began. The smell of tea, the soft hum of the fridge, Jason's calm voice saying words that split my world in half. I wake up and lie still, listening to the ocean outside my window, reminding myself that I'm safe now. The sea has a way of washing pain clean, even if it never really disappears. In the mornings, I walk along the shore with my cane, letting the wind sting my cheeks awake. I talk to Bob out loud sometimes. Strangers probably think I'm crazy. But it comforts me. I tell him about the letters, about the women who found their courage because of my story. I don't feel strong every day. Some mornings, the loneliness feels heavier than any betrayal ever did. But then I make tea, open the window, and remember, I'm still here. And being here, being alive, unafraid, that's my quiet victory.